Hi everybody, Ryan Jackson here. I hope you're having a great day because guess what? You deserve it. You're awesome. We're going to keep on talking about our residential receptacle location requirements. In the first video, we talked about 210.50 and 210.52a. In this one, we're going to talk about 210.52b and 210.52c, which is having mostly to do with the kitchen, dining room, pantry, breakfast nook, and similar areas. So let's go ahead and get our code books open and let's start talking about where you need receptacles. All right, let's do it. 210.52b1, small appliance receptacles. The small appliance branch circuits must supply all receptacles for walls, countertops, and refrigerators in the kitchen, pantry, dining room, breakfast room, and similar location. Okay, so there's a section 210.11c, I think it's C2, maybe it's C3, that says you need at least 2 small appliance branch circuits for each kitchen. Now, small appliance branch circuits need to be 20 amperes, and they're only allowed to supply the receptacles that are indicated in this section. All right, so you need at least 2. You can have 200 for all I care, right? You can have 3, you can have 4, you just can't have less than 2. So 2 small appliance circuits for each kitchen. The 2 small appliance branch circuits must serve all the receptacles for the wall space receptacles. Now, that is not every receptacle in the kitchen. That is the receptacles for wall spacing. The receptacle for the dishwasher, for the disposal, those are not wall space receptacles, right? So let's be careful on that. All receptacles for walls, countertops, and refrigerators in the kitchen, pantry, dining room, breakfast room, and similar. I get a lot of questions about whether or not you can put the refrigerator on the small appliance branch circuit. And it's not only that you're allowed to, you're required to. Right? That's what this rule says. Now, there's an exception, and we'll talk about it. But generally speaking, yes, the refrigerator has to be on one of the 2 20-amp small appliance branch circuits. Let's keep reading. What the code giveth, the exceptions taketh away. Switched receptacles from a 15 or 20-amp general purpose branch circuit for lighting are not required to be on the small appliance branch circuit. I'm sure there's an application for this. I've just never seen it. And I'm sure there's somebody that's really smart that has just like solved the riddle. But to me, switched receptacles, if you're switching a receptacle for lighting, you're usually only switching half of it, right? You're going to cut the tab and switch one half or the other. So that means that the non-switched half is still a receptacle, and it still needs to be on the small appliance branch circuit. So if you're switching both halves of a 20 amp circuit for lighting and you put it in the dining room, then I guess that receptacle doesn't need to be on the 20 amp small appliance branch circuit. But I don't know, man. It doesn't seem like something that's very practical to me. Exception 2, however, is something that we see all the time. An individual branch circuit rated 15 amps or more is allowed to supply power for a receptacle to any specific appliance. All right, so what the code used to say for years is the 20 amp small appliance branch circuits had to serve all the receptacles in the kitchen, right, the wall space receptacles, as well as the countertop and the refrigerator. And then there's an exception that said, hey, the refrigerator can be on its own 15 amp circuit. Well, what if I want to have my coffee pot on its own 15 amp circuit? Could we do that? Sure. Yeah, and I mean, look, I understand. You know, I if I could, I would put my coffee pot on its own 20 amp circuit and its own generator and its own transfer switch, and I'd probably have a UPS system on it too, right? But obviously, you don't have to. So if you want to supply an individual branch circuit for an individual appliance, it can be 15 amps. But you still have to satisfy the spacing requirements and everything else. So in this picture here, could you run an individual circuit for the refrigerator? Sure. Individual circuit for the coffee pot? Sure. But that doesn't get you off the hook. You still have to have the kitchen countertop receptacles. So it's probably not going to help you, but we'll let you do it if you want. The 2 or more 20 amp small appliance branch circuits must not serve any other outlets. Okay, any outlets other than what? Well, the refrigerator, the countertop receptacles, and the wall space receptacles, right? Now, remember, this applies to the dining room too. So looking at this picture, I've got my small appliance branch circuits to hit the countertop and then go into the dining room, right? The dining room has to be on the small appliance branch circuit as well. You cannot put lights on this circuit. You cannot put the microwave on the circuit. You can't put the gas igniter. Well, the gas igniter actually has an exception. But you can't put the microwave, you can't put the dishwasher, you can't put the disposal. This is all that you can put on it. However, we do have an exception for an electric clock. Right? Thankfully, because I was wondering, like, where am I going to plug my clock? Yeah, okay, so receptacle for an electric clock. If you have one of these, then, I would tell you to join the 21st century. But a receptacle for an electric clock can be on the small appliance branch circuit if it's in the kitchen, dining room, pantry, etc. So, okay, fine. You want to have an individual receptacle for one of those, be my guest. The other exception, receptacles for supplemental equipment and lighting on gas-fired ranges, ovens, or cooktops can also be on the small appliance branch circuit. This is something that I saw get screwed up quite often. You can use the 20 amp branch circuit to pick up the gas igniter. What you cannot have is the microwave on this circuit. And also, where people would screw up, what I would see is they would not put the gas igniter on the small appliance branch circuit, even though you can. They would put it on the same circuit as the microwave, and that's usually a violation. If you go to section 422.16 B4, I think it's item number 5, it says that the microwave, if it's cord and plug connected, has to be on its own circuit with nothing else, not even the gas igniter. So put the gas igniter on the small appliance branch circuit. Don't put it on the microwave circuit, and obviously don't put the microwave on the small appliance branch circuit. Let's keep reading. 210.52 B3, the last thing in B, says both circuits must serve the kitchen countertop. Either or both can also serve the dining, pantry, breakfast nook, and similar, and each may only serve one kitchen. All right, so let's knock out the second sentence first. If you have 2 kitchens in your house, you need to have 2 small appliance branch circuits for one, 2 different small appliance branch circuits for the other one. So 2 small appliance branch circuits per kitchen, and they can only serve one kitchen. Both of the circuits have to hit the kitchen countertop. All right, so remember, small appliance branch circuits have to supply the dining room, the kitchen, the pantry, the breakfast nook. So could you have all the receptacles in the dining room on one circuit and all of the kitchen countertop receptacles on the other? Well, the answer is no, because this rule says both circuits have to hit the countertop. Now, we're not going to go any deeper as far as telling you what to do than that. We're not going to say you have to alternate, so this one's on circuit A and this one's on B and this is on A and that's on B. We're not going to get that far in the weeds. We're simply going to say, look, both circuits have to hit the countertop. So if you have 6 countertop receptacles, could you put 5 of them on one circuit and then take it home? Sure. Then put the last receptacle on the countertop and hit the dining room? Sure, that would be fine too, as long as both circuits hit the countertop. Item C, countertops and work surfaces. All right, there's a big change in the 2023 code. I've done 2 videos covering it. If you want to hear about it, look at one of those videos. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on the change because this video is talking about the overall rule. So 210.52C, countertops and work surfaces. Countertops or work surfaces that are 12 inches or wider in kitchens, pantries, breakfast rooms, dining rooms, and similar must have receptacle outlets as indicated in items 1, 2, and 3. All right, so looking at the picture here, this is obviously a kitchen. Back here where the cooktop is, that's a countertop. Over here on the right, that's perhaps a work surface. I know they look the same and they both are supported by cabinets, but notice the change in elevation. The countertop is up higher than this thing over here. Plus, it's obvious, at least to me, that the intent here is to be able to slide a chair under that little knee hole. So whether we want to call that a kitchen or a countertop, now it doesn't matter. For years, it just said countertop. Now it's countertops or work surfaces. So the rules over here on the right are the same as the rules on the left. Now again, this is for kitchens, pantries, breakfast rooms, dining rooms, and similar. I'm not going to say that a laundry is similar to any of those. I don't think it is. But here we have the dining room, and it has countertop or work surface, one or the other, right? It's one of those two. Do we have enough receptacles for this space here? No. We're going to find out later that we need to have receptacles basically every 4 feet through there, and we don't have them, so that's a violation. So this is in the dining room, and then you can see as the height kicks up here, that was where the kitchen started. So kitchen, dining room, whichever, it doesn't matter. The rules are the same. Where does the kitchen end? Where does the dining room start? Doesn't matter. The rules are the same. You got countertop, you need receptacles. What about this thing here? Well, architecturally, from my understanding, this is known as a butler's pantry. So if you were standing here mixing yourself a drink or something, and you were to reach your arm out to the right, your arm would be going into the kitchen. Okay, just to kind of make sure that we understand where we are. So this is called a butler's pantry. Now, for years, this did not require receptacles. Is this a countertop? Is this a work surface? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Is it in a kitchen? No, but guess what? It's in a pantry. And countertops or work surfaces in a pantry require receptacles, right? We just read that. So, got to have receptacles here. All right, one more time. Countertops, work surfaces 12 inches or wider in kitchens, pantries, breakfast rooms, dining rooms, and similar must have receptacle outlets as indicated in items 1, 2, and 3. So 12 inches or more, got to have receptacles. I'm not sure why they have to tell us this twice in 210.52 because they tell us this in 210.52c and in 210.52a4, but might as well talk about it again. Receptacle outlets installed for the kitchen countertop or work surface covered in C do not count as the wall space receptacles covered in A. So the fact that you have a receptacle up here does not negate the requirement for a receptacle down here. They don't count for each other, right? You have the countertop, you have the wall space, and they're two different animals. If a multi-outlet assembly is used, then each 12-inch length of assembly is considered one receptacle outlet if it contains at least 2 receptacles. All right, so this is kind of a tricky one. What the code says, the code doesn't tell you where you need receptacles. The code tells you where you need receptacle outlets, all right? And here in the photograph, we have lots of receptacles, but only one receptacle outlet. And I know that's dumb, but it doesn't matter. So they made a change in 2020 to clarify. Look, if you have multi-outlet assembly like this, yes, that's only one receptacle outlet, but it's a whole bunch of receptacles, and that's compliant. So if a multi-outlet assembly is used, each 12-inch of assembly is considered one receptacle outlet. So from here to here, one receptacle outlet. From here to here, another receptacle outlet, as long as it contains at least 2 receptacles. So we're good. All right, wall space. Where do you need these receptacles? Receptacle outlets must be provided so that no point along the wall line is more than 24 inches from a receptacle measured horizontally. We're going to butt our tape into the cabinet here on the right, pull it to the left, need a receptacle within 2 feet. Butt our tape into the oven here, pull it to the right, need a receptacle within 2 feet. So if this total is less than 4 feet in width, then you only need one, right? Let's do another example. We're going to start over here in the corner on the left. Now, I'm just going to tell you the gospel according to Ryan, all right? How do you measure this? When you start doing the layout, this wall over here, so let's say I'm mixing myself a drink or making a sandwich on the countertop. The wall that my elbow would be smacking against right over here where my mouse is, do I need to count that wall? In my opinion, no. I think it starts where my arrow is, all right? So I don't think it wraps around the corner in this instance, okay? Because I don't think that little portion of wall is wall countertop space. So we're going to butt our tape in to the left, pull it to the right, receptacle within 2 feet. Pull the tape 4 feet, add another one, right? That way, anywhere in between those two, I can touch a receptacle outlet within 2 feet. Put my tape into the oven, pull it to the left, receptacle within 2 feet. Butt my tape in, pull it to the right, receptacle within 2 feet. Then I'm going to go 4 foot over here, and then Here's where we can have the debate. All right, I'm willing to have the debate on the right-hand side. I'm not willing to have the debate on the left-hand side. How do I measure around this corner? I don't think the code necessarily says. I think, here's what I would tell you to do. Butt your tape into the corner. Within 2 feet, you better have a receptacle. And then, butt your tape into it and pull it this way. Within 2 feet, you better have a receptacle. And then you know you're going to be good. All right? So where I'm going with this is, what if I had a receptacle here, and then it was 3 feet to the wall, and then I continued the measurement around the corner and added a receptacle within 1 feet? Would that satisfy the 4-foot spacing thing? Well, yes, but you need to be able to touch a receptacle outlet within 2 feet of any point on the wall space. And I think most people are going to say that the wall space measurement starts here and then it restarts at that corner for the purposes of countertop. Again, the code's not clear on that, so ask your inspector and results may vary. We have an exception here, and this is a good exception. It says a receptacle outlet is not required behind a sink or cooktop in accordance with NEC figure 210.52C1. All right, so there's a drawing in the NEC that shows a sink mounted in a corner, and it also shows a sink or a cooktop mounted on a counter, and we'll show you that. But what it says is, if your sink is in the corner and the space between the back of the sink and the corner of the wall is less than 18 inches, then you do not need a receptacle. All right, so if it's that small, then it's probably too small to do anything meaningful back there. You couldn't have a coffee pot or a crock pot or a whatever, right? There's not enough space to plug things in, so you don't need receptacles. Now, I think most residential electricians are well aware of that exception, but here's where I think people screw up. How do you measure? So at what point do you begin your layout knowing that you don't need a receptacle behind the sink? I think you draw an imaginary line along the sink, and where that imaginary line hits into the countertop, that's where your measurement starts. So right there from where my mouse is, pull the tape back 2 feet to the left, you need a receptacle. Over here on the right, I think we got a violation. Imaginary line, start there, pull my tape backwards to the right, you better have a receptacle. It looks like we don't. So I think this is probably a violation here. We need a receptacle where that switch is. That should be a receptacle. The switch should maybe be over a couple more inches, for the disposal. If it's 18 inches or more, God, isn't that just beautiful, that installation there? Hey, if this is your house, sorry. But if this is more than 18 inches, then you need a receptacle somewhere back there. So cut it into the backsplash like this. Your homeowner will thank you later, I promise. New exception in the 2023, and I adore this exception. I'm so happy with this. It's not written perfectly, but hey man, I challenge you to do a better job. Seriously. Writing code that is concise and easily understood and enforceable and is practical and we can put it into play, it's harder than you might think. So I'm paraphrasing what the code says. I think this is the intent. It says if a receptacle is required but cannot be installed in the space next to the sink or cooking appliance in figure 210.52C1, then one must be provided as close as is practicable to the countertop, and the total number of outlets required by this section must be provided. All right, so here's the drawing from the NEC right there. It shows the it shows the range or the sink, and if it's less than 12 inches from the back of the sink or range to the countertop, then you don't need receptacles back there. Again, it's too small to put your coffee pot or your crock pot or whatever. So don't need receptacles directly behind the sink, like in this picture. But next to the sink, you need a receptacle within 24 inches. This new exception says, hey, that might not always be feasible. And if that's the case, then just do your best, all right? Maybe you can't put one exactly within 2 feet. Just do your best. Make sure you have the number of receptacles that's required by the NEC. Put it as close as you can and call it good. I absolutely love that new exception. 210.52C2, Islands and Peninsulas. Again, look, I've done 2 videos covering this code change. I know people are freaking out about it, but if you want to really get into the weeds and hear about the data and the injuries and why this is in the code, go grab one of my other videos. Islands and peninsulas, a receptacle outlet is not required for an island or a peninsular countertop or work surface. You don't need one. All right, so here in the photograph, if you look really close with a magnifying glass, you might see that I kind of photoshopped. I had to eliminate where this receptacle was. It's not required. You do not need a receptacle for this entire peninsula or countertop. Now, where does the peninsula begin and where does it end? Well, I don't really like the way the code says. In my opinion, the peninsula should start here at the connecting edge. But in the code, it says it's measured at the connecting wall, which means I would follow the edge of the countertop and extend an imaginary line. That switch and that receptacle are on the peninsula. So how many receptacle outlets are on this peninsula right now? 1. How many are required? 0. You don't need any. All right, so you could move that receptacle over and that would still be fine because you don't need to have any. No receptacles required for islands, no receptacles required for peninsulas. However, if a receptacle outlet is not installed, then accommodations to add one later must be provided. All right, so if you're doing like a slab on grade or a basement, then you're probably going to need to run a piece of conduit out to that countertop, all right, out to that peninsula, out to that island. Run that conduit over to the box, run a pull string through it, or just go ahead and run some cable. If it's in concrete like this, probably run UF cable, assuming that you don't have a vapor barrier because it's going to be a wet location. All right, so run UF cable, or if you're in a dry location, if you're above ground, run NM cable, put it in a single gang box, put a blank cover over it, drop it in the bottom of the cabinets, and you're done. Right? Remember, that's still considered accessible. 314.29, I think, says boxes have to be accessible. Read the definition of accessible. If you put it under the countertop, under the cabinet, and close the cabinet doors and it's under there, that's still considered accessible. I can get to it later if I want without damaging the building finish. So don't have to have one. If you choose not to, accommodations to install one later on must be provided. We're not going to make the homeowner remodel their whole house, right? Rip the kitchen apart, saw cut the concrete just to add a receptacle if they want one. You don't want to put one. You don't want to put one in. Fine. You have to make it easy for the homeowner to put one in later on. All right. Location, vertical dimensions. Receptacle outlet must be in one of the following locations. One is above, but not more than 20 inches above the countertop or work surface. All right, so my kitchen countertop receptacles have to be above the countertop, but not more than 20 inches above the countertop. If they're 5 feet above the countertop, then what's the point? Most of your appliances only have a 2-foot cord. So above the countertop, not more than 20 inches above the countertop. So these all comply. This does not. Cannot put the countertop receptacles underneath the countertop. Now, again, I've already done videos about this and talked about it, but this rule does not say that you can never have a receptacle under the countertop. Think about it for a minute. What if you had a sink here and you have a disposal? Yeah, you can put the receptacle for the disposal under the countertop. In fact, you have to. Where else are you going to put it? What this rule says is receptacles installed for the countertop must not be below the countertop. Oh, well, Ryan, that's not for the countertop. That's for my vacuum. Give me a break. That's a fight that you're going to have with your inspector, and best of luck. In my opinion, this is a violation. That receptacle is installed for the countertop, can't be below the countertop. If you want to call that a vacuum cleaner outlet, put it down by the ground. All right? When it's up high like this, that's for the countertop, that's a violation. You can also have receptacle outlets that are listed for use in countertops. Those are allowed in countertops or work surfaces. All right, so this is a countertop. This receptacle outlet is listed for use in countertops. This particular one is made by Hubbell. Today is January 10th of 2024. To the best of my knowledge, This is the only device that's listed for countertops. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I think this is the only device as of right now that's listed for use in countertops. The other ones are listed for work surfaces, all right? And those are two different animals. Item 3 says receptacle outlets listed for use in countertops or work surfaces are allowed in work surfaces. All right, this, you might remember, is the work surface in my dining room. I'm not going to call it a countertop because, in my opinion, the countertop starts over here where the elevation changed. This is my kitchen on the right. This is my dining room on the left. That's a work surface. Kitchen has a countertop. Work surface receptacles would be okay down here. Countertop receptacles would be okay down here. Over here, where we start getting into the kitchen and it's a countertop, not a work surface, that requires countertop receptacles, not work surface receptacles. 210.52 C3, just about done. Receptacles not readily accessible due to sinks, appliance garages, or appliances that are fixed or occupy assigned space do not count as required outlets. All right. Here in the picture, I think we're missing a receptacle outlet over here on the left. So this is counter space. It is 12 inches wide or bigger. Therefore, it needs receptacles. And the space consumed by appliance garages like this does not count as countertop space. So if you want to put a receptacle or two inside that appliance garage, be my guest. They don't count as required receptacles. You still need to have a receptacle here on the left and one near the blender over here on the right. And you can see that we do have a receptacle plugged in right there, so we're good to go. Not too keen on having the cord laying on top of the cooktop here. Probably not the best idea, but hey, it is what it is. We have two informational notes here in 210.52 C3. The first one tells us to take a look at section 406.5E, F, and G, because those contain rules for receptacles in countertops and work surfaces. If you go back to those sections, what you're going to find is that receptacles are not allowed to be installed face up in a countertop like this. That would be a violation. They're also not allowed to be face up underneath a sink, like for a disposal or for a disposal. That would be a violation as well, for good reason. While we're on this picture, if that's an outdoor kitchen, it's a kitchen. Now, remember, kitchen is defined in Article 100. It's an area that has permanent provisions for food preparation and cooking and has a sink. So if there's an outdoor sink and an outdoor, permanent provisions for cooking, that's a kitchen. 2 small appliance branch circuits, 20 ampere, countertop spacing, the whole ball of wax. The other thing that I mentioned is for multi-outlet assemblies, take a look at 380.10. That's just uses permitted for countertop or for multi-outlet assemblies. Not too much interesting there. The last thing, 210.52 C3 informational note 2, reminds us to take a look at Annex J for information regarding designs for individuals that have disabilities. Usually not an issue in single family. If I'm wiring a house, we don't have to worry about access for disabled persons. If the homeowner, wants to have, things that are an accessible height, then certainly we should accommodate them. But I don't think any codes require it. Once you start getting into multifamily, like apartments or hotels, then you're going to have to read Annex J. There's some good information back there about reach ranges, because that's really the issue here. How high up can I reach if I have dwarfism or if I'm in a wheelchair? All right, so countertop receptacles, how far can you reach and how far can you raise your hand to reach a receptacle might be something that you want to take a look at. All right, that's it for this video. We will see you on the next one where we finish our little journey through section 210.52. We're going to talk about bathrooms, we'll talk about unfinished basements and garages and outdoor receptacles and hallways and foyers. And I hope to see you then, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for stopping by. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and ring the bell.